Most family businesses say they'll figure out succession later, and often that means crisis, conflict, or a sale nobody wanted. Today on People Are the Business, we're going to be talking about family business succession, passing the torch with confidence. And by the end of this episode, you'll know why succession is so hard, what confident transition looks like, and a few concrete moves you can start in your own family business. So wouldn't and couldn't do it without Allison and Jay. What's going on, family? How things?
Hey, good.
We have spring in
For a
Canada.
day.
In Canada, we have spring, and then we have winter back. And that's how it works, right?
Well,
I think there's a few more in between.
Yeah,
I
not
think there's like
till
17
June.
seasons here.
I would say, we have something coming in May, right? For sure, May is going to hit us. So I think it's not until June that we, I think, finally get rid of winter.
We can relax.
well, in Toronto, they say many people say we only have two seasons: winter and construction.
Oh yeah.
True that.
That's true.
So let's get down to it all. Before we go any further, please like, subscribe wherever you're watching. Share it out. If you've already subscribed, thank you. If you haven't, why not? Just asking. What's stopping you from
Yeah, what's your problem?
So, all right. So as we mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier on, we're going to be chatting about family business succession, patching the torch with confidence. So I want to kick it off with Ms. Allison. So I got a question for you. When founders start talking to you about succession, what are they really worried about beneath the spreadsheets and tax plans?
Oh, I think there's so many emotions that go along with succession planning. It's about somebody's legacy and their relevance. Like there's so much baggage, I think, that goes along with it. But ultimately, I think the main issue is, whoever's going to be taking over the business, will they care as much as the founder or the current generation, right? Like, will they be able to sort of carry on that legacy and have it be something that still speaks back to the founder, right? Or will it become something totally new that the founder doesn't recognize? I think there's a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm. What, if I can go a little bit deeper with you, what sort of tax financial planning have you encountered in any of those situations, if you've had to deal with that?
Well, myself, I'm more of a CFO and not like on the tax side of things. But yeah, I mean, there's so many legal and tax issues. It's important to have, those advisors around you. And there's so many great advisors out there. So that's usually not the struggle, I think, to find a good advisor. It's more around like, how does the founder, like, what are they worried about? How do they,
yes.
Do they have someone? Do they have someone in mind? Do they have kids? Maybe do they want their kids to take it over? Do the kids want that? There's so many sort of family relationship aspects that can go along with this. And it's not always family. Sometimes it can be, like other employees, like other senior staff members who work closely with the founder and have indicated that they would like to, take on an ownership stake and that kind of thing. But, there's logistical issues, there's, compliance issues, legal issues, so many things to worry about. And I think it can be very daunting.
Okay, good stuff.
And on top of just running the business.
Yes.
You gotta run
keep
the
it
business
going.
and in an economy that is kind of tough right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pass it over to Mr. J. So from the operations and people side, what do you see when a family business is approaching a transition?
Well, I think if they don't know the numbers, they have instincts on what these numbers are. 70% don't make it to the second generation, and 90% don't make it to the third generation.
Whoa.
And so I mean, those are the numbers. And yeah, you've got the occasional story where somebody says, yeah, I sold my company for millions of dollars, or I'm a rock star. But you put 10 people in a room in Southwestern Ontario, owner operators, the numbers say 70% don't make it. So fear, right?
Yeah.
And some of that fear might be related to um, they don't necessarily have experience in change of control and change of authority, because it's kind of a generational thing. It's like you have one time when this happens, you can't learn from it because you just have one shot. It's kind of like one and done.
Yeah.
Whereas people that work maybe in, General Motors or Toyota or big companies, they have change of authority and change of control all the time.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
CEOs come in and
Executives are
out.
coming and going. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Your bosses is coming and going. So, um, the generational type situations, like, they just don't have a lot of experience. It's a once in a generation that happens, right?
I just want to go a little bit deeper, if I have permission with you on that. I know you've probably been involved in this sort of thing with organizations before. Do you ever have to encounter staff loyalty to the founder versus, I don't want to work with
Oh
this
yeah,
next generation of ownership?
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's you're always going to have, or I always see some of that. Um, and it's probably, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's probably what where it gets troublesome is when that person had expectations of the transfer that were not met, and that expectation might have been equity, and it's like, oh, the person's not getting equity, and if it's not equity, it's something that maybe is change of control or change of authority or your role. So my expectation was I was going to continue as the CFO. Well, maybe what happens is they're not the CFO, they're the controller. So I would say that the challenge, I think, is, the people that have stated employees, et cetera, had certain expectations. Those expectations were not discussed, you know, and therefore they weren't able to verbalize them. And then the expectations aren't met. And it's like, okay, that's when you start having a rub, right? People start to get a little bit not wacky, but they start to get a little bit sideways on both sides,
Yeah.
right? And then you got to mediate and kind of figure out both sides where you see superpowers and where you see blind spots, and helping them understand that.
Yeah. I'll chime in this. Working with helping a lot of entrepreneurs or assisting a lot of entrepreneurs. Again, a lot of them, they're first generation entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So right then, it's just a battle for them to stay above water.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then for many of them to think about next generation, that's not even that is the far. They're just trying to survive, let alone thrive, but they're just trying to survive, passing it on. Farthest thing from their mindset. They're fighting every day. And then I know a lot of them will tell me, you know what, if I succession plan, I don't know if my customers are going to stay with me. I don't know,
Mm,
because there's someone else doing it. They're so used to me.
Mhm,
They
mhm.
are the people in the business. They're the people. That one
Yeah.
person is the people in the business. And I've seen, it's a good example. Close to me, there used to be a Hakka food restaurant, fantastic food. And the husband and wife owned it for 20 plus years. Like, people would travel
nice.
2 or 3 hours away to have the food.
Hmm.
Two sons wanted nothing to do with the business.
Yeah.
So it just shut
Yeah, it
down.
happens.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, generational wise, there's a different generation after us, and they have different thoughts and ambitions. So it's even more challenging for that entrepreneur that I'm assisting. They're just, I'm going to make it now. If there's something on the other side, it's great. If not, hey, I did what I can.
It's almost as if they maybe change their definition of generational wealth, Because that's often what I hear is that they want to pass on and establish generational wealth. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not passing on generational wealth if they simply don't take over the restaurant. Maybe you're passing over generational wealth because they've become persistent and they've seen the resilience and they want to do it maybe in a lumber company. Generational wealth, passing it on, doesn't have to be the business, I would say,
True.
that
The
creates that
business itself.
generational wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes first generation owners think that is the definition. It's like, well, not necessarily. I mean, if I work for big companies, am I concerned about my children having generational wealth in their second generation? No. And they're not taking over my company. They're going to be successful in their own area
Right.
to create generational wealth. Now, whether they'll create generational wealth or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
You have no control over that.
I'm certainly not worried about their ability to live very comfortably and live as much as they want as far as that goes.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, let's move it on.
I get a question for you, Dr. Vide.
Okay. Go for it.
All right. So you were at Nike.
Adidas.
Okay. Same.
No problem.
Oh, sorry. Not same.
It's okay. No, as long as none of them hear that, no problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. You're at Adidas. How long were you at Adidas for?
Oh, I have to remember. First, I got to remember having hair.
Okay,
About three or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. So I talked a little bit about change of control and change of authority. In the 4 years that you were there, did you have the same CEO or did you have a change?
No, I had a different CEO.
And did you have the same boss all the time or different?
Had the same boss all the time, but different CEO.
Yeah. So here's a good example of where in Adidas, you saw change of authority, change of control. And how did you behave?
It's a really good question.
Like, did Adidas die?
When the CEO left, it was a totally different environment. I had a wonderful relationship with the CEO. He was fantastic. And I think we may need to do an episode on great CEOs with people, with people in the business. He was fantastic. When he left, my relationship with the CEO was not as good. It just wasn't as close and dynamic as that CEO that left. And he was a people person. He was a people are the business person. This other gentleman, he was people of the business in a way that didn't align with me or collaborate with me.
Yeah. So, but I think though, you went through change of authority, change of control. That was a place for you to learn what you liked.
Yes.
About the change of control and authority and what you didn't like.
Yep.
So that's a good example of where you went through it. And I think that's sometimes generational handoffs. They don't go through the changes. And so they can't see what good looked like and what bad looked like. So I think that's your example is kind of aligned with that challenge.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, because I'm a full proponent. In that situation, totally give me a better definition of what I liked and didn't like. So when I moved onward, I knew what I focused on. I knew what I didn't want. So it wasn't a bad experience. It was a learning experience.
Right on.
So that's the way I look at it.
And some people with big companies, they go through these things every 4 or 5 years. Different bosses, different CEOs. It's just like a revolving, door. And so they build a muscle of change.
Flexibility. Yeah, you're flexible. You can adapt to the different environments, which is a good thing because there's always change in business. Last I checked. But okay. So let's move on to why passing the torch with confidence. What does it look like? So let's flip the script. What does it look like when a family actually passes the torch with confidence? So Allison, we need to get you back here. Can you share a time when you were either engaged or saw a first to second generation transition, and what went good?
When I have seen it go well, It's because there's been planning and communication. So setting expectations, making sure that the person who, like the founder, for example, they want to pass it to their kids, making sure that is what those kids want, right? Like back to what Jay was saying earlier, right? Like, are they, is the is them taking on the management and the ownership, which are two different things, of that business. Is that what those kids want? Do they know what they're in for? Do they have the right expectations about what these roles entail, what the responsibilities are? So having that clarity, that conversation, maybe the founder has to really consider the value proposition of what, what the kids would be taking on, and sell it a little bit, right? Like kids might only see and I'm saying kids, the next generation, they're not obviously children, but um, the next generation might have seen the behind the scenes pain and stress and anxiety that goes into running a business sometimes, and maybe don't appreciate fully what the value proposition is for them, what the potential is for their own, growth and development. So there's that whole, value proposition around that. Um, and I think the founder has to really listen to what the next generation wants as well. Sometimes the founder just has in their mind, this has to be passed down. It has to be you. You have to take this role or that role. You've got to listen. You've got to listen. So I think the healthy situations that I've seen are when there is alignment. It doesn't mean that, agreeing on everything, but it means that there's a shared sense of value between the two parties. And when the conflicts inevitably arise, they've got sort of a foundation on which to work those things out, and tons of planning.
And in that planning, Allison, how important is it for them to have the financial leadership in place and understood?
Well, I think that goes without saying for any business, really. Any successful business is going to have a financial leadership aspect to it. The succession planning, to me, it's not just about dollars and cents. There's so much more to it. And, I would suggest that, you can, like I said, you can bring in advisors to help you with all of the technical, legal and tax aspects of these things. The business financials, the business should be able to continue. That's the whole point of succession planning, is that it's going to continue, right? So if you have all of the leadership roles in place, and those people, that team the management team is working well together, and that there's an appropriate type of transition of responsibilities, but also integration, right? So if that next generation isn't yet in the business, like you said, there can be some friction when the new person comes in and takes over, if the sort of handoff hasn't been planned and well executed.
So,
I'm going to jump in first, just real quick.
Yeah.
How, when you said the word integration, it struck a chord with myself and Jay. We both went, Jay, go on.
Yeah. Well, what I was wondering is, have you seen, Allison, where the handoff has been to somebody that's been outside the organization and coming in? So they were pushed out to say, you go learn from other companies, and then you come back in. Have you seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is like probably one of the most effective things to do. If you have a next generation, a person who's only ever worked in that company, then they're limited in what they know. They only know how we do it here, right? Being able to go out, work somewhere else, and then come back. I've seen this happen a few times. It's so valuable.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Good. That's really good. Jay, what about people on the operations side? What are the signs that it's going well?
I mean, planning, but in operations, it's like, okay, planning is one thing, but execution is a lot more important than just a plan. So I take it down a little bit lower and I say, I want to see playbooks. I want to see playbooks with plays, or I want to
Mhm.
see recipes with ingredients and the sequence of events in which you're going to make that recipe or a 5-star meal. I want to see those things. Why? Because then that kind of tells me that there's been diversity in developing them because people are actually using it. And that tells me that that organization is not relying on one really, really smart person or one really, really smart first generation owner. They're valuing and leveraging the diversity, and they've made this playbook that gets exposed and looked at all the time and improved. So I do look for playbooks and recipes around not just the technical side, whether it be financial planning and tax and things like that, but on the leadership side. How should meetings be run? Here is the recipe. Number one, you make sure you have some energy. Nobody likes going to a meeting that has no energy. All right, your job is to make sure that there's energy at the beginning of this meeting. Number two, you make sure there's focus. Number three, you make sure there's respectful accountability. Number four, you make sure there's involvement. And number five, you better have good results. So it's
Wow.
kind of like it's not so magical to
Right.
think of recipes and ingredients for leadership and the EQ side of things. It really
Mhm.
isn't. There are playbooks and recipes that can really be defined, and maybe that recipe has to be tweaked for a new organization, but it's a recipe. So that's what good looks like. What sometimes bothers me is when the generation owners get the feedback on the EQ side and said, well, it's a little tricky and it's a little bit, I'll tell you my magic sauce of how to kind of lead and communicate. And it's like, no, it's not tricky. It's not magical. There are recipes and there are playbooks that help to be specific around how you lead a meeting and things along those lines. So when I see good playbooks. I see good recipes, not just on technical side, but also on the EQ side.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Just out of curiosity, Jay, with the organizations you have worked with, what percentage of them even have a succession plan in place?
Well, so the ones that I've worked with General Motors, Volvo, they have
Okay.
succession planning.
Right.
Why? Because we demand it.
Mhm.
Like Dr. Vibe, you demand it. And you
Mhm.
demand it by investing in their stock. And oh yeah, it's your RSP. So you invest in them. Can you imagine investing in a company that didn't have a succession plan?
Wow.
Uh-uh. I'm not investing in that company.
Right.
So I would say that that's publicly traded companies have succession plans.
Okay.
Ones that are not publicly traded, if they're on the verge of being bought by a PE company or kind of by a big company, the buyers want to see succession planning.
Mhm.
So unfortunately though, I would say that there's probably 60 to 70% of them had succession planning.
Okay.
Um, but the stats are telling us that they don't make it. 70% don't make it. So the question is, they got succession planning. Why aren't they making
Yeah.
it? And I
Right.
think it comes back to they're not placing as much emphasis on the EQ side and the leadership and the communication and learning what other organizations do before hand off, there's not enough emphasis there.
Got it.
They can get through the technical things, but then the other side is it's too magical. It's like it's not
Yeah.
that magical. But
Yeah.
It's
With the
relationships, right? Like
yeah.
it
It's,
gets all
it's
the
foundational.
human emotions get
Yeah.
into it, and perceived fairness, and yeah, there's
Yeah.
so many pitfalls, but they're on the people's side. It's
mhm,
not necessarily the technical stuff that's going to trip you up, but that can all be dealt with. But
right.
the relationship stuff is not as easy to have, to hire an advisor to come in and sort that out, right?
Now let me just throw an equation at you, because I like my equations on
Hmm.
relationships. So this was taught to me about 6 months ago, and it said trust equals credibility plus reliability plus relationship divided by egotistic, like ego. In other words, if you have a high ego and you're 10 out of 10 with an ego, that's going to hurt the trust. But
Mm.
so there are ways to break down how to develop relationships, listen to them, digest it, you know, don't use definitive words as in this or that. There are recipes and ingredients, right? It, it's not as much magical as it once was.
From my end, the ones that work out well, they're a family during business and not during business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
If the family ain't right outside the business, it's certainly not going to be right in the business. I've seen more than enough entrepreneurs. Oh, so my son does. I don't want to work with my son. He's this.
Mm,
I don't want to work with my. So I'm going.
mm,
There's no succession planning happening there, and when they can't even get along at that level, because again, we're just solopreneurs, a family-run business. There, I was at a restaurant about 2 months ago, and the gentleman, him and his wife own the business, and they've been together 20 years. Plus, there are kids, nephews working in that business. So there's already that environment of generation. They're working already now, whether they're going to pass it on or not, but they're setting the example and saying, again, it's going to be up to the next generation if they want to do the succession planning. But again, when you're running it as a entrepreneur solo and you want other people to be involved, they're watching you.
Mm.
So, what percent of companies or generational handoffs
Yep.
do you think where there is strong family
Mm-hmm.
as compared to, I won't say
Good question.
dysfunctional, but what have you seen?
Well,
And can a dysfunctional family
that
successfully
maybe I,
hand
I
off?
I won't quote anything because I don't know. But what I will do is in the show notes. What I will do is I'll find that stat
Mm.
and share it. And it's a really good question to pursue.
Allison, what are you seeing?
I have seen, I don't want to use the word dysfunctional either.
I know it's a bad word, but I just think that's
Yeah.
what it
Well,
is.
and I don't know enough, right? Like you don't see, you're
Yeah,
not there in
sure.
the family. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I'll say contentious.
Right.
I have seen
Mhm.
some contentious situations. I have seen that, having somebody in the mix who's kind of perceived, trusted by all sides and perceived as fair and neutral to some degree, can be very effective in helping sort some of this stuff out. But again, that goes back to that trust equation, right?
Mhm.
So if the families maybe got contentious relationships and not trusting each other necessarily, or struggle to hear each other, do you know what I mean? Like
For sure.
struggle to trust, it's having somebody else in the mix can help. It's not it's not a silver bullet, but if you have someone like that, that can go a long way.
Stuff.
So curious, you mentioned about people going outside and then coming in, and that was very transformational, and it worked out well. Have you seen a dysfunctional or contentious family do that and then still be successful? Like, have you seen an example? My sense is it could be, but I'm wondering if you've seen that or
I have seen where one of the next generation goes out, works elsewhere, gets tons of experience, and comes back and is participating in leading the business. Ultimately, the business that I'm thinking of ultimately was sold by the second generation when the first generation passed away. But there was a time where they had to lead it together until they had all their ducks in a row, right?
right.
To do that divestiture. And I think that it does add some credibility. The fact that this person has been out, had a career or part of their journey, their career journey outside of the business. There's more relevant experience. But again, if the trust isn't there, if the relationships aren't there,
Yeah.
like that fact alone isn't going to fix things, right?
Right.
If a sibling is not trusting their other sibling, doesn't matter if that sibling has been out working in different companies and coming back in. It could even make it worse, right? Oh, you haven't been here. You don't know this, that, whatever, right? So it's really does. I mean, we say it, people are the business. It's the relationships, it's the trust, it's the leadership, it's the openness that really, enables success.
All right.
Very cool.
Let's move it on to another conversation topic here. Common traps that destroy confidence. And we're talking about trust and how to avoid them. So let me ask Allison first. Where do families unintentionally blow up their chances of a confident takeover or handover? I say handover, not takeover, handover.
Common traps that destroy confidence. I think, if you have a next generation as a founder, if you have a next generation that is not ready, not up to the task, not experienced, and you want them to take over simply because they are family members, I think that's something that's going to destroy confidence or impact confidence, around them within the organization. So, you I think have to, as much as you may, love your offspring and you want very much for them to take over, you have to be realistic about their level of capabilities at that time. And I know Jay's going to say there's recipes, there's things that can be done, right, to help people learn and grow. And I 100% support that. But it takes the initial, willingness to assess and say, okay, I don't think this person in my next generation group has the skill set yet to take this on. And I use the word yet a lot. It's that word of possibility, right? So going out, getting that leadership training and helping them develop. Maybe they go work somewhere else for a while and come back. There's got to be a long lead time to, help avoid these types of traps.
Jay, playbook time?
Oh, yeah, I know. Back to playbook and recipes and ingredients. But I'll move it up a little higher. I think the trap is that there is maybe not a clear understanding as to what the challenge is. And I think the challenge is really change of control, change of authority. And then the second trap is, well, if they don't recognize that as the primary challenge they've got, change of control and change of authority, then they rely on inputs from people that have have that are similar to them. Owner operators, first generation, transition to second generation. And it's like, okay, well, that person, like, we know that's only 30% effective for, whatever. So that person might have had some special abilities, but there are a lot of other people that have gone through change of control and change of authority that could help you. And the trap is that, yeah, but they don't understand. What? They don't understand change of control or change of authority that happens every 2-3 years for them for the last 20 or 30 years? Well, I think they do. So I think there's a trap sometimes that the inputs they get are not addressing the change of authority and change of control. They might be addressing tactical issues, but not the challenges that really exist.
For myself at the entrepreneur level, I would say trying to force the next generation to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Money's appealing.
Yeah, say, look, I've built this all for you and you've got to continue this.
Yeah.
That's probably not the best way to try to convey succession planning on that. And it's maybe a challenging example, but I'll bring it up. A lot of times I will ask an entrepreneur, do they have insurance?
So insurance. So what type of insurance?
Well, that's what I mean, because they're not thinking. A lot of times they will have families, and if they're not able to function, what's safeguarded? So I'm always thinking about
like key person insurance. Yeah.
And there, and like a lot of people I get back to a lot of the entrepreneurs I assist. They're only thinking about the here and now.
Yeah. They're just
and
trying
the
to
here
survive.
and now can end in a second.
Yeah.
But I always tell them, don't force your kids to want to do what you want to. If they enjoy, if they like it, they'll tell you, they'll show you, they'll want to hang out with you. Right. But if you're trying to force them to do it, let alone kids don't like to be forced to do things, adults are even worse.
Do you think, Dr. Vibe, that there are many parents that are forcing kids these days like they did maybe 30 years ago?
Oh God, Jay, we need a 3-parter on that one, but I'll make it short. To not as much these days because there's so many distractions and so much diversions. Right? There's so much diversions. Like, quick story. When I graduated from junior high, I received at that graduation a proficiency award from the Minister of Ontario. I get off the stage. What do you think the first thing my dad said to me?
Hopefully, great job. I don't know.
He said, "You're going to university." I said, "Dad, I haven't even stepped into high school yet." So they had I think in today's parenting, and I know there's so many diversions. There's a lot less. Can I say? Yeah,
like,
you know where I'm coming from.
It's not as authoritarian.
Exactly.
Parenting these days.
So again, today I think it's better to show them what it's all about than to tell them what it's all about.
Yeah, demonstrate.
Yeah. So, and if they like it, they're going to do it. If they don't, and again, when you're working with, when you're with small business, even more so.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with the next generation. Why are you not home all the time? Well, I'm doing this for you. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to raise and do that because I don't want to live that life.
Yeah.
All those different factors. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So as we close off our conversation today, 3 starting moves for a confident succession. So we'll take one each from Allison, Jay, and myself. Allison.
I'm going to say process.
I'm rubbing it off on you, I think.
I think just like attracts like. I think that, we're aligned on this.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm rubbing off on you.
Oh,
process. So, as you're beginning your business, as you're developing the way that you do things. Think about, can I do this in a way that I could give it to somebody else to do? And this is just, I think, helpful advice for anybody in business, any entrepreneur, right? Whether you have somebody that you want to transition the business to or not, like a second generation kind of thing or not. How are you gonna grow if you have to do everything yourself because you're the only person who knows how to do it? Because you've created things that make sense to you but don't make sense to somebody else. So creating processes, writing down the processes, showing somebody else, and being open to, oh, maybe this process needs to change so somebody else can handle it more easily. Processes.
Jay?
Well, I'm gonna say it the same way, but just use different words. What are the ingredients to make a recipe? And put it in a playbook. And what I'm finding is that as you move from big companies, they talk about processes all the time. And then when you get to the smaller companies, it's like, well, they don't have the resources to develop all these processes. So it's like, okay, well, we want to solve this. So let's figure out what that recipe is. What are the ingredients? Okay, solve it. Oh, we're going to put it in. Where are we going to put that? Well, we're going to put it in a playbook. So it's kind of like, it's the same. It's basically the same thing, but it's kind of toning it down and maybe putting it at a micro level. Start off with some recipes and some ingredients. And yes, you need technical plays and playbooks, but you need leadership, decision making, meeting behavior. That is maybe tougher, but it's not magical. There are recipes and ingredients, lots of them, that can help you work through that, which will then give you a healthier team. And your definition of health of the business first is, I'll say, teamwork, then comes financial. And so that's same thing as what you're saying, for sure. And then just not to forget that you can have great tactical playbook, but if you don't have this side,
right,
it's not going to hold. It'll be tough.
My suggestion is having a legacy conversation with your family and just tell them that, you know what, this is the reason I'm building this business, and my vision is to hand it over to somebody in the family or whatever. And if anyone is interested, I'm here to show you what the ropes are like. Simple as that. But I think important saying the reason why they've built this business. And a lot of times it is to help take care of the family. You want to make that and have that expressed to the family. This is the reason why we're doing this, to make your life better. And take it from there. I don't know how many family run businesses have that conversation with the family.
Yeah. And I do think, though, the first question is, what is your definition, child, as better? And because you got to be so careful that you're not placing your definition of better onto your child, right?
Yes.
And that's, yeah.
Well, then maybe having that conversation. What is that family member? What do they have a vision of what their future looks like?
Yeah.
Have
that openness between each other, right?
Future planning. Future planning. All right. I think we are done another episode. We got through it.
Right on.
We got through it. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please email us at info@peoplearethebusiness.com. I think we may have to change the title to People and Processes Are the Business. Allison and Jay are like, they're trying to change us in mid-sentence or mid-show, but no, we'll do all that. But I want to say thank you again. If you have subscribed, thank you. If you haven't, what's stopping you, and most importantly, share it out. And we'd like to hear from you. So as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace, and we'll see you soon. Be well.